An STM officer was going to her friend's wedding. She was dressed like an ordinary girl. No government vehicle, no security, just riding a motorcycle like any regular girl. When she neared the town of Hasnabad, she noticed a police checkpoint ahead. 3 or 4 police officers were standing on the road outside the post, and in the middle stood Inspector Prasenjit, wearing his uniform. He signaled with his stick for the girl to stop. She pulled her motorcycle off the road and parked it to the side. In a stern voice, the inspector asked, "Where are you going?" The girl calmly replied, "I'm going to my friend's wedding." Inspector Prasenjit looked her up and down. The girl was a 28-year-old beautiful woman, whose name was Barnali Singh. Then, laughing, he said, "Oh, going to eat and drink at your friend's wedding, huh? But your dad is going to wear the helmet. Why didn't you wear one? And you were riding this motorcycle way too fast. Come on now, you'll have to pay a fine." Inspector Prasenjit began pulling out his challan pad. Barnali had realized what his real intentions were, and that this was just an excuse. She said, "Sir, I haven't broken any law." "Oh, madam, don't try to teach us the law." He glanced at a constable standing beside him, then looked back at Barnali and said, "We need to teach her a lesson." Suddenly, the inspector slapped Barnali hard across the face. "Too many questions, huh? When the police say something, you're supposed to quietly obey." Barnali's head spun for a moment, but she composed herself. Rage was clearly visible in her eyes. The officer in charge, Inspector Prasenjit, laughed and said, "Still got attitude in those eyes. I've fixed plenty like her. Time for a proper lesson." A constable stepped forward and said, "Sir, let's take her to the station. We'll give her proper service there, then she'll learn how to talk to police." One constable grabbed Barnali's arm and said, "Come on, sit in the vehicle." Barnali jerked her arm free and said in a sharp tone, "Don't you dare touch me, or the consequences won't be good." The inspector grew even angrier. He told one constable, "Look at that arrogance." A constable stepped forward, grabbed Barnali Singh's hair and tried to drag her forcefully. Barnali cried out in pain, but still, she didn't reveal her identity. She wanted to see how low they could go. Then one officer, in anger, smashed her motorcycle with a stick and loudly said, "Acting like a saint, huh? Now we'll turn you into a toy and play with you." Barnali Singh now fully understood what was about to happen to her, and how low these people could stoop. There was rage in Inspector Prasenjit's eyes. He shouted loudly, "I've seen many smart ones like you. You want to mess with the police? Today we'll show you. Take her to the station. We'll teach her there." Still, Barnali Singh remained silent. She showed no intention of revealing her identity. She wanted to see just how far they'd go in defaming the administration. How far could they go with their cruelty? Inspector Prasenjit was now irritated. Standing before him was a woman whose soft and beautiful cheek had been slapped, whose hair had been pulled, who had been dragged by the arm across the street. Yet she still stood silently, like a statue. No screaming, no crying. Inspector Prasenjit thought, "Let her reach the station, then I'll figure out how to treat this stubborn woman." This wasn't just anger, this was a rage boiling deep within. The post-in-charge inspector laughed and said, "Now her tongue's starting to work too? Let's go to the station. We'll see how far your tongue goes there." As they entered the station, Inspector yelled loudly, "Hey! Where are you? Get some tea and water, quick. We've got a special guest today." Barnali Singh still said nothing. She just kept looking at the station walls, observing how they treated innocent people who never dared to raise their voice. Then one constable leaned toward Inspector Prasenjit and whispered, "What's the case, sir?" To that, Inspector Prasenjit casually replied, "Ah, nothing. Speeding or no helmet. Write whatever you want. We just need to break her ego. Don't ask too many questions." Barnali was hearing everything, but her eyes still didn't speak a word. It's like she wanted the story of this disgrace to spill from their own mouths. Inspector sat down on the chair, spinning a pen across the table, then looked up at Barnali and asked, "Name? Where do you live? Whose daughter are you?" Barnali remained silent. The inspector repeated, "Didn't you hear me? What's your name?" Still, Barnali's silence stood like a stone wall. Then the inspector slammed his hand on the table so hard that the sound echoed throughout the entire station, and he shouted in anger, "Didn't you hear me? Tell me your name now!" Barnali slowly turned her face and replied, "G. Sumita Sharma." The inspector looked at her and smirked. "Oh, smart girl, huh? You're used to lying. But remember, if you get too clever, it'll cost you big. One single mistake, and you won't even get time to regret it." Barnali Singh was then forcefully thrown into that filthy lockup where two other inmates were already sitting. One of them looked at her and asked, "Sister, what crime did you commit?" Barnali gave a faint smile but said nothing. She was just observing how rotten the entire system had become. If an SDO could be locked up for no reason, then imagining the condition of regular people wasn't hard at all. Barnali now sat in the corner of that dark cell, watching, listening, and understanding every act. Inspector Prasenjit then fabricated a false report and said, "Put a theft and blackmailing charge on her." He slammed his hand on the file and said, "Let's go, quickly." One constable asked, "But sir, without evidence?" The inspector laughed and said, "In this station, evidence isn't brought in. It's made." A while later, a constable came in and slammed his hand on Barnali's shoulder. Just as the inspector raised his hand again, a commanding voice came from the doorway. "Stop!" Everyone turned around. At the door stood Senior Inspector Sanjay Barna. His reputation was a little better than the others. He looked inside, saw the woman's condition, and a frown appeared on his forehead. He asked, "What's going on here?" Prasenjit smiled and said, "Nothing, sir, just a street woman acting too smart. We're teaching her a lesson." Sanjay looked at Barnali carefully. Her behavior didn't seem like that of an ordinary woman. He asked, "What's her crime?" Prasenjit got nervous. He said, "Sir, she misbehaved during checking." Sanjay felt suspicious. He asked Barnali, "What's your name?" Barnali stayed silent. Prasenjit laughed and said, "Sir, she's not even telling her name." Sanjay now became fully alert. He ordered the constable, "Keep her alone in solitary." Prasenjit was surprised. "But sir," Sanjay sternly replied, "I'll stay beside her myself." On his orders, Barnali was locked in another cell, even more foul-smelling and darker than the last. Barnali glanced around. In one corner there was a broken table, and beside it a rusted iron rod. Now she was seeing the real face of this dirty system even more closely. Every moment her eyes understood. The law had now become limited to just paperwork. Then a constable came running and said, "Sir, a big vehicle is parked outside." Prasenjit flinched. He asked, "What vehicle?" The constable replied nervously, "Sir, a government car." He rushed outside, and the moment he looked into the vehicle, his eyes widened in shock. He hurried back in and whispered, "Sir..." Prasenjit, irritated, asked, "What happened? Who's here?" The constable, shaking, replied, "Sir, the commissioner is here." Prasenjit's face turned pale. Senior Inspector Sanjay Varma also became alert, because now the matter had directly reached the top. The commissioner stepped into the station, and the anger was clearly visible in his eyes. He looked at Prasenjit and asked in a sharp voice, "Inspector Prasenjit, what kind of drama is going on here?" Prasenjit, flustered, replied, "Nothing, sir, just a small case." The commissioner picked up the file from the table and read it carefully. A frown appeared on his forehead. Then he peeked into the cell and asked, "Who is she?" "Sir, there's a 420 and fraud case against this woman." The commissioner asked, "Do you have any proof?" He asked again, "Do you have any proof with you?" Now Prasenjit was completely trapped. The commissioner directly asked the woman, "What's your name?" And for the first time, Barnali Singh gave a faint smile and said, "SDO, Barnali Singh." Silence spread through the entire station. Everyone's faces turned pale. Prasenjit's hands and legs started trembling. All the other constables stood shocked. The ground beneath Prasenjit's feet vanished. The officer he thought was a thief was the same officer who ran the law across the whole district. She was not an ordinary woman. She was SDO Barnali Singh's herself, the one who had been dragged on the street, whose hair was pulled, who was slapped. And as soon as this came out in front of everyone, chaos broke out in the entire station. All the constables froze in shock. The commissioner looked sharply at Inspector Prasenjit and angrily said, "Prasenjit, how dare you place false charges on a senior officer?" Prasenjit tried to say something, but before he could, Senior Inspector Sanjay Varma, standing nearby, shouted, "Sir, I told you earlier something was off." Now Prasenjit was completely left alone. Then Barnali Singh, in her calm but firm voice, for the first time directly announced the verdict and said, "Prasenjit, this time your job is gone. Your suspension is confirmed, and now there will also be a case filed against you." Hearing this, Prasenjit felt like he couldn't breathe. The rest of the police turned their faces away from him. Sanjay Verma immediately shouted, "Havildar Sahib!" "Take him and throw him in the lockup." But just then Prasenjit pulled out a folded piece of paper from his pocket, smiling as he said, "Wait, madam. Take a look at this first, then do whatever you want." He showed the paper. Both the commissioner and Barnali Singh instantly looked at him. Prasenjit said, "Here, my transfer order. I was transferred 3 days ago. Now, no matter how angry you are, you can't fire me from the job." The entire station fell silent again. Barnali took the paper in hand and read it. The commissioner, narrowing his eyes, looked sharply at Senior Inspector Sanjay Verma and said, "Go. Check if this paper is real or just for show." Sanjay checked the computer records, lifted his head and said, "Sir, it's real. But the new inspector hasn't taken charge yet. That means he's still the official inspector here, and all the misconduct was done under his watch. Now no one can save him." Barnali Singh looked him in the eye and said, "Now your new address will be the same place where you used to throw others in." The commissioner also nodded in agreement. As 2 constables stepped forward to catch him, Prasenjit played his next move and said, "Wait, madam. I'm not alone. Do you really think all the blame is just mine?" Then he pointed toward the other police officers in the station and said, "All of them are with me. Even people from the top are involved." Some of the police officers' faces lost all color. Senior Inspector Sanjay Verma began looking at each one, realizing the situation. Barnali Singh looked at the commissioner and said, "Now we'll have to clean out this entire station. No one will be spared." The commissioner also said, "As you command, madam." Now everyone will be held accountable, one by one. The moment those words were spoken, it felt like lightning had struck the station. Outside, a few journalists stood quietly, already suspecting that something big was going wrong inside the station. When they got the news that the entire police station line had been summoned, they immediately started spreading the news from their phones. A shiny car came and stopped in front. The door opened, and SP Sir himself stepped out. He looked around. Everyone's face had gone pale. All the officers of the station were standing on one side, and SP Sir said, "Since when has this circus been going on here?" But both the commissioner and the officer in charge stood silently. At that moment, Barnali Singh looked straight into the SP's eyes and said, "Do you think you'll get away with this?" Sanjay Verma immediately pulled out a file and handed it to Barnali Singh. That file contained all the black deeds of SP Sir, completely exposed. Barnali Singh held the file out to the SP and said, "Here, look. All your dirty secrets are rented out in this." Sweat started dripping from the SEP's forehead. Without any delay, the commissioner shouted loudly, "Arrest him! And also arrest that other scoundrel." The whole station was stunned. For the first time, someone had publicly challenged such a high-ranking officer. As soon as the SP was arrested, a storm broke out across the entire district. The matter reached all the way to Delhi. Even the chief minister was informed, and from there came a direct order. Arrest every officer in the district who was involved in this mess. Within the next 2 days, more than 40 police officers, over 10 senior officials, and several political leaders were arrested across the district. The entire atmosphere of Hassanabad district changed. Now, everywhere, there was only one topic of discussion: the honesty and bravery of SDO Barnali Singh, who had shaken up the entire rotten system. Now there was a new energy in the administration, a new mindset, and above all, Puriti, a new fear that no one could escape anymore. Barnali Singh's work was done. She had proven that if your intentions are truly pure from within, then even an entire country can be transformed. If you've watched the video till the end, please give it a like and subscribe to stay with us.